My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is the only channel dedicated to UFC fight picks and DraftKings lineups run by MMA insiders and professional fighters. Every week, I join Dan Kramer and Nick Newell, two longtime professional fighters that have fought at the highest levels on the planet, as well as Jacob Lyons, a skinny kid from Indiana. So join us every single week for our full fight card breakdowns, our individual fight card breakdowns, our betting guide, and our DraftKings lineups. Coming off the heels of an awesome pay-per-view, but one of the wildest DraftKings weeks we've seen in a very long time. Last week, people had crazy prices, matchups were nuts, and it was one of the most difficult cards to navigate. This one, in my opinion, is a much easier card. UFC Vegas 27. I think there are many paths to victory here. I think all the fighters are appropriately priced for the most part, and there's some solid decisions that we can make to do well and make some money. So let me walk through my lineup. Right out of the gate, I have Rob Font in the main event. We just broke this down in our individual fight breakdown video, so check that out if you want more details. But I just think Rob Font is more composed, and he's very technical, and he has a very good chin. This is a 5-round fight. I think over the course of 5 rounds, Cody has a lot of opportunities to get too excited, come charging in, and get knocked out, where Rob Font will never be in that position. He's very composed. He's laser focused on the task in front of him and what's going on. With that being said, Cody is a wild athlete with a ton of power. So anything could happen, but Rob Font's only $8,300. He is a main event fighter, and I genuinely think he wins. So I have Rob Font, and I'm going with Shabazian over Hermansson. Shabazian's a big underdog here, and it's essentially grappler versus striker, with Shabazian being the striker. Usually, I'll go with the grappler, and I think Hermansson should win, but Shabazian has very good power, pretty good takedown defense, and I think Shabazian can get this done. He's got solid leg kicks, and there's going to be opportunities here to make this happen. Hermansson does take people down, but he has a hard time keeping them down. People pop right back up. So if Shabazian can make him pay, I think he'll get this done. And over the course of 3 rounds, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Shabazian to hit Hermansson, hit him hard, and potentially put him out. I'm going with Ramos over Algeo. This is basically a pick 'em fight. The reason I'm going with Ramos is he's $7,700. He is the much cheaper fighter. This is a rebooked fight. This was supposed to happen a few months ago, and when it was, they were much closer in price. For whatever reason, I don't know what's happened in real life, but for whatever reason, Ramos is now much cheaper. So I will take Ramos at $7,700. It's going to be a back and forth war. I see a lot of striking, a lot of grappling, and just an enormous amount of points to the winner in this fight. I think it's very close. I'm going with the underdog because he's affordable. Bruno Silva over Rodriguez. I think Bruno Silva wins this fight almost any way he wants to. I see him being better everywhere. I think he's honestly going to get a stoppage here. So I have Bruno Silva. He's a ton of money, but I do think he's worth it. I think this is a mismatch. Then I have Yancy Medeiros over Hadzovic. And I think Medeiros is on the comeback trail, right? He's made some changes in his life. I think he's in a much better position than he was a few years ago. He's gone back to Hawaii. He's training with Max Holloway in his original camp. He's great on his feet. He's got really tricky jiu-jitsu, and he just had a weird skid. But as Jacob pointed out in the individual fight breakdown video, if you look at the skid, it's against killers, really high-level people when they were high-level people. So I think he's got the experience. I think he has the more technical striking. He definitely has the more technical grappling. So I think Yancy Medeiros wins this fight and sort of hits a little streak of his own. And then finally, I have Ismagulov over Alves. I do think this is pretty one-sided. I think he scores a ton of points. Rafael Alves throws bombs. He's moving up in weight because he missed weight so severely last time. So there are questions here, but and he's got power and he's got some nasty jiu-jitsu, but I just think Demir Ismagulov. Even though it's a 2-year layoff, I think he comes in. He looks amazing. I think it goes a full 3 rounds. He's not exactly a stoppage machine, but I think that just means he scores more and more points with his striking, with his control time, with his grappling. And I think he wins this very clearly over 3 rounds. Alves does have power. He's a little wild, but this is my lineup. I only have $100 left. I tried to get Ben Rothwell in here because I think Ben Rothwell is a guaranteed win. But the more I thought about it, I just don't think he scores a lot of points in that win. But this is what I've got going on. Let me close this out. Jacob, why don't you go ahead and build your lineup?
Yeah, I think this is a tricky card because I don't see a lot of finishes on this card. I think there's a lot of tight matchups with a lot of decisions. So this is going to be real important. Usually you have cards where you're like, oh, this guy's probably going to finish. I think there's a lot of decisions. So it's going to be a little bit trickier than people think. And this was the first card that I broke down where as I was breaking fights down, I didn't have the odds in front of me before I looked at the fight. So I didn't know who the favorite was. And then when I picked the fights, I ended up picking like mostly favorites, which just shows how good I am at picking fights that they're the favorites anyway. So, the first fighter I'm going to take here is Damir Ismagulov. I don't know if we're all going to pick him, but Angelo has him in his lineup. He's just fantastic everywhere. He grapples when he needs to grapple, but he's a fantastic striker as well. I think he scores 1,000 points, which will be some sort of record. It's got to be. So I have him in my lineup. And then I went with Yancey as well. As Angelo said, I think this fight turns into a brawl, and I like his toughness in this brawl. You can never go wrong with Hawaiians, especially in the underdog role. And I'll talk about underdogs and favorites here on my lineup. Somehow I managed something just miraculous, but we'll get to that. Then I went with Claudio Silva in this. His fight against Leon Edwards sold me. He was in full mount, just beating the crap out of Leon Edwards, who is just the darling of the division now. I think he does the same thing to Court McGee. Court McGee is tough. I don't think he's going to get finished. It's another one of those fights where I don't think there's a finish either way. Court McGee hasn't finished anyone, but he also doesn't get finished. So I think there's just a lot of ground and pound with Silva, a lot of takedowns. So that scores him a lot of points. Next, we're going with the lock of the week. We're going for 4 in a row lock of the week. Last week we got screwed by decision. We'll go into the Supreme Mother effing Court for that decision and getting that thing overturned to get 4 in a row lock of the weeks with Ricardo Ramos. I said last time this fight was supposed to happen. He was going to be my lock of the week, but he wasn't quite an underdog. He is an underdog, and somehow he's the only plus odds fighter in my lineup. So I managed 6 fighters, and he's the only plus odds fighter in my lineup. He's plus 105. I don't even know how that's possible, but that's how good I am at making lineups. Next, I'm going with David Dvorak. I think he's one of the most talented fighters on this card behind Garbrandt. Just the way he fights, he has 8 TKOs, he has 7 subs, he can win, he can take the fight anywhere and win the fight anywhere. I love the fact, and this is another one of those guys that he doesn't really chase a finish. A lot of people can get in trouble when they start chasing finishes. Cough, Cody Garbrandt. He doesn't really chase the finish. He's very smooth. I think he needs to be aggressive in this fight to win the fight, but I think that's what he ends up getting done. And then I have $8,000 left over. I was looking around because I honestly did not want to put Garbrandt in my lineup. It's hard to trust him at this point because he just loads up on their right hand in his last 4 fights. He's landed 1 of the 4, but I ended up going with Cody Garbrandt in my lineup. I mean, you put him in the octagon versus anyone, he's more talented than 99% of the people. And that's like not even just in the division, in the entire UFC. I think he's one of the best boxers in the entire UFC. He's going to have the speed over Font. He's probably going to have the power of Font too. It's just whether he can just stay in the zone and just stick with the game plan and just not turn into the Cody that we saw versus Dillashaw twice and versus Moonhouse. So he's definitely the better fighter, but we'll see what happens. I'm pulling for Garbrandt in that fight. So, I mean, if you look at the odds that I got, I have Garbrandt minus 110. So that's a pick 'em. I have David Dvorak. That's minus 145. I have Ramos plus 105. Claudia Silva minus 110. I have Yancey minus 105, and then Damir at minus 550. So I have like basically all either pick'ems or favorites in my lineup. This is going to be another 6 for 6.
Yeah, I like your lineup. The only pick I disagree with is and we broke this down in the individual fight breakdown video. I think Court McGee is much more live, but your lineup, you do have a nice lineup there. So Daniel, why don't you go ahead and walk us through your lineup?
Sure. So I've been flip-flopping mine around kind of all day. There are a lot of different scenarios here. The multi-entry stuff, it's going to be crazy this week because there's so many close fights that could go one way or the other. So, but yeah, we'll start off. So I'll start off with Bruno Silva over Rodriguez. Bruno Silva, the money man, he's going to make me some more money again this week. I think he's going to dominate that fight. Rodriguez is tough. He's got a little bit of power, decent chin, but I think Bruno Silva is better than him everywhere and by a long shot. I think he's going to dominate. I think he's worth the $9,300. Then we got the other Silva. I'm rolling with Jake here. I had $8,200 left over at the end. Seemed like a good fit right there, $8,200. I could have went with McGee for $8,000, but I mean, you got to spend the extra $200 if you got it, right? Those are the rules in DraftKings.
Yeah, you don't get to keep it.
Right, you can't cash it out, so I might as well go for Silva. No, all kidding aside, I think that's going to be a very close fight. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes one way or the other, but I think Silva has the upside of a finish more so than McGee, so I think it'll be a back and forth fight. Probably a ton of points either way. So I'll spend the extra $200 for Silva on the chance that he lands a big bomb or does get his takedowns and ground and pounds or gets a submission. Then I think we're all very similar on our underdogs here. So I got Ramos and Algeo. I'm taking Ramos here. Again, I think there's going to be potentially fight of the night. You know, there's a couple other ones that are going to be really good too, but it's going to be an action-packed fight, grappling, striking. Very, very close, coin flip, but for $7,700, I think he's got a good shot of winning, and I think he will more than justify the points. Same logic goes with Yancy Medeiros. Very, very close fight. I think he may lose early, but I think his cardio and the upside of a submission later on in the fight, that's what kind of swayed me towards him for the $7,800. So I'll take him right there as an underdog. Then I got Coulibaugh over Shalian. We talked about it in our individual breakdowns. I don't think Shalian is really ready for the UFC yet. He looks like he's, an improving amateur fighter. And I think Coulibaugh training with his team will be more than ready for this fight and should dominate. I don't know if he'll get a finish, but he should dominate this from beginning to end. Anything short of a random guillotine or kind of a lucky submission, I don't see how Coulibaugh loses this fight. And then last, Jake, I'm rolling with you. I got Garbrandt in the main event. I think it's going to be a close fight. I could see it going either way, but I'm taking Garbrandt. I think he's the more athletic fighter. I think he's the more well-rounded overall MMA fighter. And for DraftKings specifically, I think he's got that one-shot power that can make your lineup. So for him to be $400, $500 cheaper in a 5-round fight, I'll take him all day. So that's my lineup. I spent every dollar, and I feel good about it. I'm feeling pretty good. Check back Saturday. It'll be totally different because I'm going to probably flip-flop it 100 times, but
we've already had a couple drops and flops, so we will see what happens. So stay tuned. We always do our final lineups. We drop them on Saturday mornings. We may end up with the exact same lineups, or we may have a couple fights drop, or we watch weigh-ins. Somebody struggles a bit, we make some changes. So make sure you check back for that. We also have a free DraftKings league. There is a link in the description. Join the league. Play in the contest. If you're a subscriber to the channel and you win our free weekly contest, we'll give you $15, however you want it. Cash App, Venmo, however you want your money. If you are a member, which means you clicked the join button under this video, we give you $30. You double your money. It's just smart investing right there. So let us know in the comments who you think has the best lineup. If you're a member, you can use the fancy emojis. Everybody else, type it out. Let us know who you think wins. I'm looking forward to this week. You guys say it's a tricky card. I mean, they're all very tricky. This one, I'm at least more confident in some of the winners, right? I think there's a lot more fights this week than last week where I'm pretty sure I know who's going to win. But we will see what happens, and we will have final lineups for you on Saturday. Big, giant shout out and humongous thank you to all of our members and supporters. I specifically want to thank Antsy Music, David Ramon, Chris Jory, Dunchichi, Jesse Correa, Lapuzza, Joe Todoro, Logan Garrick, ex Sweet Spot X, Jordan Burgard, Aaron Reynolds, Brent Hinson, Jill, Juan Valdez, Chris Riley, Kayla Roth, King Rob, oh my gosh, 1337, Pierre Exelholm, and Chris V. You guys are outstanding. We genuinely appreciate it. If you are an existing member and you have not gotten your commemorative Dan Kramer collecting card, reach out with
like
your
Pokemon
address.
cards. They're making a comeback.
Reach out with your address and we will mail it to you. If you are not a member and you want one of those limited edition cards, hit the join button below and we will get one out to you immediately. Members also have the ability to earn $30 in our free DraftKings League instead of the traditional $15 for everybody else. Thank you all.
That's double.
That is double. It's basically an investment. So thank you all very, very much for the support. It is appreciated, and we will see you every single weekend.